We are live. Welcome to another episode of Better Than Broadway, Season 2, Episode 3. I'm going to do my best to get through this episode. This has been a tough week. If you're a wrestling fan, this was not a great week. Tuesday, January 17th, we lost an icon of the business. And a friend of mine, Jamin Pugh, was a wonderful human being, a father, a husband, a brother, and a friend, colleague. But everybody in the wrestling world knew him as Jay Briscoe, the former Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion and the current Ring of Honor tag team champion with his brother Mark. I got a text around 8:15, maybe a little earlier, on Tuesday night. Just gotten home from work. I was making dinner, and my phone's just blowing up left and right. Hey man, did you hear? Hey man, what's going on with Jay? Did you hear about Jay? Did you hear what happened with Jay? And you go online, you type in Jay Briscoe's name, and then you see that he was in a car accident and that he had been killed. And if that weren't bad enough, his two young daughters were in the car. Gracie, who's 12, and JJ, who's 9, taking his kids to cheer practice and ride in the truck, and another car comes on and swerves and hits him. And Jay didn't have a seatbelt on, and the lady that hit them did. Both of them died. She died on impact, and he died a little while later. Just a PSA to everybody. Tell people you love them. Tell people that you care. Tell your friends what they mean to you. Justin, you mean a lot to me. Ryan, who's on vacation, he means a lot to me too. I love my daughter. I love your kids. And, just, again, wear your seatbelt. Tell people you love them. You just never know what's going to happen. Justin, give your thoughts, and then I'll come back in a minute because I need a minute.
Yeah, man. I'm sure everybody's going to tune in for a podcast where a bunch of grown men cry and talk about some really depressing stuff. So if that's if you're looking for a bunch of lighthearted fart jokes, this probably isn't the one. But we both agreed and felt like this needed to be done, and Jay deserves it. Jay deserves a lot more. Jamin deserves a lot more. You knew him, obviously a lot better than me, but he played a significant role in my reintroduction to wrestling. About 7-8 years ago. So he was very important to me as well. And we lost too many good guys this year. And it hurts. It's never a good thing. It's hard to really emphasize the importance that Jay had on independent wrestling and his brother. But I mean, we're going to let you kind of go through. You have a very, very good grasp of his career, kind of start to finish. So anybody that maybe isn't privy to the works of the Briscoes, we're going to give you guys a crash course, and maybe you could maybe you get on the Honor Club, and maybe you could look it up, some YouTube videos, and just look and see the type of wrestler that Jay was, Jamin was, but more importantly, what's echoing all across the world now with everybody is what good of a father that he was, and what good of a husband he was. And that's what hits, I know, Rob, that's what hits you with your daughter, and that's what hits me with my kids. And it's just, it really sucks to have to live a life without a parent like that and to be ripped away. And I mean, he's 38 years old, he's younger than both of us, and I can't imagine, what the family must be going through like right now. So, as opposed to going through all the sad parts of it, we're going to try and make this as much of a celebration of his career and his life as possible. So you guys sit back, and Rob is going to, we're going to talk a little bit more.
So, I'll touch on my relationship with him later in the show, but February 23rd, 2002 was the very first Ring of Honor show. It was at the Murphy Rec Center in Philadelphia. Jay Briscoe was on that card. It was the era of honor begins. Jay Briscoe was on that card, 18 years old. His brother Mark was 17. And this is back when they had short beards and shaved heads, and they came out in wrestling singlets. And Mark was too young to wrestle on the show because he was 17, and the Philadelphia State Commission would not give him a license to perform. So Jay goes out, 18 years old. Keep in mind, Jay's birthday is January 25th, 1984. So he's a year younger than I am, and Mark was January 18th, 1985. So the day after Jay's passing was Mark's birthday. That kind of puts things into perspective just a little bit. But it's funny because they always joke that, like, you know, there was a week where they were the same age, just for a week. They were the same age, and they always laughed about it. But Mark was 17, Jay was 18. Jay battled the Amazing Red in the first ever televised Ring of Honor match. And they went for 8.5 minutes, and Amazing Red was the veteran. Jay was 18, and they wrestled a pretty fun match, pretty technical, couple of spots here and there. But in the end, Amazing Red won that match. And, you know, Mark would always joke with him. He says, well, man, you lost that first match. You disgraced our family. I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. Like, it's just being silly. Just being silly.
His
because,
voice.
You know, guys, them boys. But what you got to understand about Jay and Mark is that their family, Papa Briscoe, Jana, they're chicken farmers. That's what they do in Delaware.
Yeah, they live the gimmick. This was not, and that's what I used to tell people. It's like, you know, you talking about like peoples and gimmicks. Like, this wasn't, you know, they say, like, what does Austin say? It's like, it's just you and just turn yourself up to 11. And like, they didn't even turn themselves up to 11. That was just them all the time.
That was just them. And you know, they're just nice dudes. They're just super nice guys. I loved them to death. Just every time I'd see him, they'd say, hey, and Jay would be like, Striker, you got my gum? You know, just jokingly. And I'd always bring him a pack of gum whenever they did a show here in Atlanta or Nashville or Florida, wherever we were called to travel to. I'd always bring him a pack of Orbit, Winter Fresh gum, the little white sticks of gum. He'd tear one in half, put it in his mouth, he'd chew on it. And if he ever, like, took a shot to the jaw, he'd spit the gum out. It's flying like a tooth flying out. It was just, you know, things that just made that gimmick special. And it was kind of fun to be on that gag. But you know, I'd like to fast forward to some of Jay's better matches. One that really sticks out is from 2007. It's Ring of Honor year 5. It was Jay Briscoe versus Mark Briscoe. These two, Jay would turn heel, and he would fight Mark, and they would just beat the shit out of each other. And it was funny because they would always talk about when they were kids, you know, in diapers, they were shoving each other and pushing each other around. And there was moments where they had a trampoline in their backyard, and they would wrestle. They jump off the barn onto the trampoline. There was one where Mark talked about Jay took a chair and threw it at Mark, and then he drop kicked it and broke Mark's nose. And Papa Briscoe's in the kitchen watching him, and he opens up the window and he says, "Damn it, Mark! He broke your nose. You break his nose." It's just the way they were. They were into it. The family was into it, and you know, Mark and Jay wrestled a lot of matches together, but this one was really important because they had just lost the ROH tag titles, and they were pissed off at each other, and they just thought, well, why don't we just wrestle a couple of matches and toughen each other up and go get these tag titles back? And they did that a couple of times throughout their career. And the match started out pretty technically. They had some really good technical moves. They were doing, you know, arm bars and tie-ups, and they would, you know, get the better of each other, try the O'Connor rolls and things like that, roll-ups. And then things started getting a little personal. And the gentle shoving and the technical wrestling turned into punches and kicks really fast. And then After that, things got a little more brutal, and they started bringing in chairs, and they started putting each other through tables, and they started hitting each other with canes and throwing each other into rings. And finally, the match ended. They knocked each other out, and they did not. It was a no contest. They did not make the 10 count. They knocked each other out, and that was kind of a turning point for them boys. It's just, it's just one of those fun things where, if I know you've got a brother, I have a sister, but you have Garrett, and I'm sure you guys, probably just beat the hell out of each other relentlessly for years.
Well, that's what's funny is because, I was way into wrestling when I was younger. And then about, the turn of like the millennium, the 2000, I got out of it. And that's about the time when my brother got into it. So my brother was very much into, and that's when, the backyard wrestling started rising up. And like, so my brother, when I was kind of like in and out of the house, like, either about to move out or, you got my apartment or something like that, he was super into it, super into WWE. And, he was into ECW, and then they had all these little small promotions. And so I wasn't super into all that. I wasn't into it at all, for being honest, because I stopped watching we talked about it. For like 15 years, I didn't watch. And so I never got into wrestling with my brother when we were younger. Like, so, because I'm 6.5 years older than him. So I'm significantly older than him. So it wasn't a close enough thing to where, when you're 40, like, 6 years isn't that big of a deal, but when you're 16, it's a huge deal. So, yeah, we were ships in the night. I was a huge wrestling fan. He was too young for it. And then I got too cool for it, quote unquote. And then he loved it. And, we heard me, if you listen to the original podcast and my brother came on, I hated him for years because he taped over all my childhood footage of like, me, like the home videos and stuff over with WrestleManias and Raws. And now they got the network. So, so we never had that dynamic or whatever, but I saw him firsthand that did it. And I definitely was never like, I thought it was kind of cool because I was into the fitness thing and I was training at the time. I was actually training and working at a gym where Sid Vicious worked, and he had broken his leg. And so, I was kind of like getting to meet some of those people in Memphis and stuff like that. We lived in the same neighborhood as Sid Vicious or Sid Udi. And I don't know. It was definitely a different dynamic than that. But then, finally he brought me back into it. Garrett did. In around 2014, 2015, and we had already known each other. But I'll go into the quick story about that, before you go into the next match, because Jay Briscoe was very much so a part of me getting back into wrestling. I had done some work. I've told this story before on the podcast. I've done some video work for Jake the Snake Roberts in a documentary and a podcast he was doing. So I kind of like fell in love with it. I started watching Raw back then, but then my brother, by that time, he was like super into wrestling, but not so much to WWE. He was much more into the independent stuff, the New Japan stuff, and this company called Ring of Honor, which was at the time, the biggest, company that was independent, I guess, so to speak. It was the big leagues for the independent guys. And so we brought, a group of guys. I'd started a group, and we like a Facebook Messenger group. Garrett was on, and a couple people from the gym.
That's our chat group.
That's our chat group that we have now. Yeah. And so I'm trying to like bring this full circle. That's so cool is because like we decided to get a group of us to go together to go to a Ring of Honor show. At that Ring of Honor show, you were working crew. And I walked up, and we already knew each other from the gym. We both trained at Coffee's and blah, 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 this and that from Olympic lifting or weightlifting. It's not called Olympic lifting. It's called weightlifting. And I was like, Rob, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm working, man. I'm like, what? You're into wrestling? He's like, fuck yeah. What do you mean? I'm working at a wrestling promotion. We're like, oh, that's cool as hell. So we ended up, it was me and my brother and I think Rhett and maybe David or Evan. There was a group. There was a decent sized group of us.
Evan Burnside was there. Yeah, Evan Burnside.
Evan was there, and Rhett was there too. I can't remember if Dave was there, but anyways, like we go up there and we just, we were bullshitting. And I remember going to the bathroom, and the wrestlers were going to the same bathroom, taking a piss next to us. But that night, the main event were the Briscoes versus, I believe it was I'm trying to remember who. I think it was AJ Styles and somebody else from Bullet Club. I want to say it was like Carl Anderson and AJ Styles. And right. It was like, and they had the best live wrestling match that I've ever seen in my life. And like, as soon as they walked out, when I saw the Briscoes walked out, I said, who the fuck are these guys? And my brother was like, this is who I've been telling you about. Like, these guys are like a combination of like the freaking Bushwhackers, but if the Bushwhackers was made by freaking Tim Burton or something, like, you know, like a hardcore, you know how like you have Batman and you have the Dark Knight, like they are the Bushwhackers, but like the Dark Knight version of the Bushwhackers. And it's real. And I'm like, these motherfuckers look like they might actually kill somebody. Like they look like they might actually be like what they are. And they had a match, and then it ended with, I think, Mark going on the scaffolding. They had scaffolding. It was in this old, where was it at? It was like the what was the name of the arena that they used to do a bunch of them at? I can't remember. What was the name of that arena? But
we were at Center Stage. Center Stage. There you go. This one was actually in Duluth at the Armory.
Yeah, that was what it was. So it looked like a warehouse. So the fact that there was scaffolding there looked like it was, you know, it didn't look like they brought it in for the match. It looked like it was probably already there. I don't know if it was or not.
There. Yeah,
but
it was there. Yeah,
it was just there. And Mark was like, and it started pouring out to the outside. It poured out on us. They came right by us, and like I think, you know, knocked into me. And then they ended up, the finish was over on the other side. We could barely see it. We're like trying to walk around. Mark does this, like, you know, the monkey bow or whatever that he does. It was like a monkey, you know, the froggy bow. There you go.
Froggy bow off
that's what they call the froggy bow.
Yeah.
Off the scaffolding. And I'm like, he's dead. I'm like, JR. I was like, God is my witness. He is broken in half. Yeah. I can't believe this is, I mean, it was on flat concrete. There's no pads, no tables, no bullshit. Like from 20 something feet up in the air, fell on, and it blew my mind. That match right there made me like, oh, this is like the wrestling. Like, this is even more crazy than when I watched it. Like, this is real. Like, this isn't WWE. This isn't Impact. This isn't anything. And that match, even though I was kind of back into wrestling, that match made me love wrestling again. And it was, if it wasn't for that, a couple things. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be as into wrestling as I am now. I definitely wouldn't be into the independent wrestling. And if it wasn't for that match, we probably would have just stayed like, you know, colleagues from the weightlifting side of things and never became as close friends as we have.
Probably. So I guess in a lot of ways, we got Jay and Mark to thank for our friendship in a lot of ways. That's amazing. Now, fun fact about that event. In Duluth, as you know, AJ Styles is from Gainesville. He's you know, an hour up the road, hour and a half up the road. His kids and his wife Wendy were at that show. Okay, so his three boys, they all have AJ initials. They're all Alan Jones, you know, Alan, AJ, and all. Anyway, they were little fellas back then. They're damn grown now. They were little fellas back then, and we got the ring put together. He comes in, he's got all his kids, they're all in their AJ merch, and we had put the ring together. We had tested some bumps. We did some stuff. The guys are all going over their matches and shit, and Hunter Delirious comes over to me and he says, "Hey man, I got like a special thing for you. I know you normally do these couple of things, but you know, you've done things where you've kind of like been the helper, like helping talent, things like that." I said, "Would you mind watching AJ's kids today?" And I was just kind of like, "Yeah, okay. I mean, whatever you guys want me to do." I mean, that's what I was always there for. Was to kind of do. I mean, I got to work with Roddy Piper. I got to work with AJ's kids. I got to I've rung the bell. I've built the ring. I've pulled streamers out of them. I mean, you know, whatever they needed me to do, you know, that's just kind of what crew did back then. And, you know, we were going to those shows because, you know, Blake wanted to, my buddy Blake wanted to wrestle, and Ring of Honor was probably going to be the best spot.
That's Blake Barreto, right?
Blake Barreto, yeah, he wanted to wrestle.
Yeah, I met him at Coffee's too. Yeah.
Shout out to Blake. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And so anyway, it's like Hunter's like, yeah, somebody needs to watch AJ's kids. We don't want them running around all over the place because they're rambunctious kids. They're all. I think at the time they were like 10, 8, and 6, young.
Oh yeah.
So I've got
it's like me taking my kids to Southern Honor.
Yeah. So they're going. So this point in the match, the big spot where you're talking about, where Mark damn near busted his head open. He's climbing, scaffolding, and he goes, ah! He does his froggy bump, and he jumps off the thing and he lands the elbow. And Carl Anderson kind of caught him, but then, it was just kind of, he still hit the ground. And I remember one of AJ Styles' kids go, "Oh my God, he's dead!" I said, "Oh yeah." I thought the young little 6-year-old was gonna cry. Like, they're okay. And then AJ gets
us
up,
grown men had the same response too. We're like, "Oh my God, he's dead!"
It's hilarious. So it's wild to see people from all ages and how they get affected by these things. Well, anyway, they get back up, and then there's a point in the match where it's like Jay's gonna hit Carl Anderson with a gimmick chair, and it's out in the crowd. And I don't know what the hell happened, but I think it must have gotten moved because he grabbed a real chair and he just cracked Carl Anderson across the back of the head with this chair. And poor bastard just bleeding all over the place. And luckily, it was the last match of the taping because it was a bad cleanup. But that whole taping of shows for TV, that whole month of taping was kind of wild, and it just kind of lends back to the fun days of ROH and things that I really miss fondly. And if Tony Khan ever goes on the road again, goddamn, give me a call. I'd love to come back and do anything for you guys, just because I
me
love,
too.
I love
me too. Add me onto that.
I love Ring of Honor, man. So, you want to?
Move forward with it. Like I said, I just wanted to share that because that was my and I truly do feel that because I'm speaking for myself. Like that match, yes, I had already met all my idols and that kind of I was watching Raw here and there, and I started the group. But that match was the first experience that I had with independent wrestling, and I'd never been to I never went to an ECW show back in the 90s. I didn't, I was too young with that. It wasn't going around me. So that was my first experience ever at a local show or independent show. And it was exactly what I needed to be like. This is the coolest shit. This isn't Disney. It was just awesome. And like I said, the person out of, and I'm not saying this because it's posthumously, I've said it, this, I've said Jay Briscoe was my favorite independent wrestler from that moment until right now. And it's not going to change. And the Briscoes were my favorite independent tag team. And as I'm sure you'll get into their matches with the FTR later on and the stuff that they've done now, but it never changed because I've never seen somebody that was more believable than those guys. Yeah. As outlandish as they were still believable. Yeah.
So we're going into do you remember what year that was? Was it 2014 or 2015?
It would have had to been the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015. Okay. It would have been after if you could look it up and see, it was shortly after Old School Raw. Remember they did that Old School Raw when Jake came back?
Yeah. Right.
It was shortly after that. So whichever the next Ring of Honor show in Atlanta was.
I think you're right. I think it was mid to late 2014 because a good segue. 2014 was a really big year for Jay Briscoe because his year-long feud with Adam Cole Bebe came to a finale at December's Final Battle. Adam Cole had really just been needling Jay for a long time, and excuse me, you'll never get to the next level, you'll never beat me, blah blah blah. And it got to the point where Jay and Mark's dad was in the crowd, and Adam Cole yanked him out of the crowd and just smacked him around. And I mean, it just got personal, and you know, I mean, anything for a great story, and these guys told a hell of a story. Well, anyway, final battle between Jay Briscoe and Adam Cole was a fight without honor, and in a fight without honor, there's no rules, there's no there's no it's
no holds barred.
Submission. There's no holds barred. No, the referee's just there to make the count. He stays out of the way. And there's no handshake at the beginning of a fight without honor. It's just they just go. And this is, without question, one of the most brutal matches outside of Japanese wrestling that I have ever seen. This is one of the most brutal domestic wrestling matches I've ever seen. I mean, they were throwing chairs and they were going through tables. There's 5 or 6 table spots in this match. There was 4 or 5 chair shots. Singapore canes. One of the best spots to match is Jay brings out the thumbtacks and he gets low blowed, and Adam Cole gives him one of those Panama Sunrise kicks, and he takes the tacks and he puts them in Jay's mouth, and then he kicks him again. And I mean, it's just they're both busted open. You know, poor Todd Sinclair. He's in there. He's just in there like trying to get away from everything, and he's making the count. He's trying not to get thumbtacks in his hand because there's really nowhere for him to count because there's tacks everywhere.
People don't talk about that. In those matches with the thumbtacks are like, oh, it's so brutal for these wrestlers. It's like these referees are having to slam their hands down on tacks, like,
oh yeah,
and they get no love.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, that was one of the first matches where they put tacks in somebody's mouth and kicked him, and that's Adam Cole. Now, you remember in the Thunder Rosa Britt Baker match, Britt Baker, who's Adam Cole's wife, she put the thumbtacks in Thunder Rosa's mouth and kicked her. So,
and I'm also thinking of the cage match. The cage match with the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah, the little details later on in the careers of wrestlers. But anyway,
was Jay and Cole, were they kind of the first ones to do that as far as your recollection?
I think in the United States, yes. I think in Japan or maybe even India they've done that, but I haven't seen that in the United States. And I've been watching
because I'd never seen it since AEW or until AEW. Yeah. So I mean, I know it's obviously not something they do in mainstream very often.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool callback to that final battle match with Britt and Thunder Rosa with the thumbtacks. But anyway, that match ends. Jay hits a Jay Driller, which is his cradle pile driver. Adam Cole kicks out. He hits him with it again. Adam Cole kicks out. Finally, he brings the belt in the ring, lays the belt on the ground, and just says, this is what you did, this is what you did. And he puts him on that one for a third one, and he finally wins the match. And it's significant because Jay Briscoe became the Ring of Honor World Champion in that match. Probably, I'd say it's definitely one of his top 3 matches, and it's on YouTube, it's on Honor Club. So if you get a chance and you want to watch something, just you want to watch a dumpster fire, watch this match. Just because.
So if they want to do that, they need to YouTube. What would they type into YouTube? Adam Cole, Jay Briscoe Championship.
You would type in Adam Cole, Jay Briscoe, Final Battle 2014. That's all you have to type in.
Okay,
and it's there. It's there. So I mean, it's interesting too because Adam Cole's real name is Austin Jenkins, and there's kind of a donation page right now on the internet, and we'll share that at the end of the show. Anyway, it's been really, really heartwarming to see, all of the wrestlers have come together and made donations to the family. We at Better Than Broadway are going to make a donation here soon. But no, like Chris Jericho made a massive one. Both Nick and Matt Jackson did. Adam Cole did. The Steen family did. I mean, it's really been a heartwarming reception. And I know
it's one good thing. What I love, one thing that Tony Khan does very well, and he gets a lot of criticism. He's getting more and more, it seems like. But one thing that Tony Khan does really well is when he says that he's going to take care of somebody, It's not a Vincent Kennedy
Yes.
McMahon take care of somebody. He does it. You know, you saw it with Brody Lee. And so I fully believe that, that, you know, the family will be taken care of. And, you know, like I said, I'm not sure if it's going to be in the sense of Tony Khan just making a donation or whatnot. Yeah. But, it's obviously, you know, this is a huge deal for him because he had plans. And I want to get into this a little bit, Rob, because they had plans. He wanted to, everybody's like, why aren't they using the Briscoes? You know, the Briscoes should be on Dynamite, this and that. A couple things. A, they were very much so Ring of Honor as far as the identity goes, but you know, however many years ago, 6, 7, 8 years back, Jay Briscoe made some off-color remarks, some what people considered homophobic remarks, and basically Warner Brothers told Tony Khan that they cannot have him on live television. So that's why you did not see the Briscoes more. That's also why you did not see a tribute on Dynamite for Jay Briscoe. Rob, I think I lost you. Are you there, Rob? Uh-oh. Recording higher quality. Sorry, guys. Bear with us. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Hopefully, Rob comes back on here. All right, Rob got dropped off, so I'm gonna try and pick it up as much as we can here. So, this is something that concerns me, because, okay, he made some off-color remarks. What a lot of people don't know is that he's gone through a lot of different channels to make good on those remarks and public apologies, all these things. It was just something that he did a long time ago. He regrets it, and the fact that someone would stop a tribute show to a man that is clearly universally loved in the industry, and such a good father. It's just really sad that where we're at today in society, that someone's getting blocked or canceled to that effect. I think that's the issue. So we just got word from Rob. Apparently the power is out in his house. So that is awesome. So what we're going to do, guys, is we'll cut this one a little bit short, and we'll get back to you guys as soon as we possibly can. What you may see is a two-parter for this one. So thank you guys for checking in. In the meantime, go YouTube Jay Briscoe. Go to YouTube the Briscoes, Ring of Honor. Adam Cole. Oh, look at that. We're back on. I was just gonna round it up. And call it a day.
The power went out in my house.
Oh, really? Well, you know what? Your picture actually looks better on your phone here. So maybe that's good.
You don't look better, though.
I don't look better. Well, it's really hard to make me look better, to be fair. But yeah, the audio is a little bit less, but I mean, it's perfectly fine. I was just going over while you were gone. I was talking about the Warner Brothers not allowing it and kind of like my dismay towards that. Do you want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, I will. So 10 years ago, Jay cut a promo. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he used an insensitive term. He said that 6-letter F word that we don't use in the world anymore, and he said, I'm going to beat his F ass all across the state of. He was in character, yeah. But so anyway, long story short, the internet, especially Twitter, went bananas over it because, he's this, he's that, he's insensitive. Well, anyway, he caught wind of that. Anyway, the very next night at a show in maybe Florida, I can't remember, he got in the ring, and he said, "Look, guys, I said something terrible in character, and I am terribly sorry." I said, Jay Briscoe's a case. My name's Jamin Pugh, y'all, and I need to do better. I am a leader of this company, and what I said was reprehensible and this and this. Well, I mean, after that, he went to sensitivity training and he went to all these things and he made donations and he apologized to everyone in the locker room. He apologized to the fans. I mean, he really, really, did what he was supposed to do as a man, and he stood up for his actions and he owned everything. I mean, he really, really did the right thing. And for Warner Brothers Discovery to not allow him to be on AEW television, and you're going to let Dana White have slap fight TV on after he, abused his wife, on New Year's Eve, and Ezra Miller, who has
And not in character. Not in character.
Not in character. And then Ezra Miller, who plays the Flash in the movies, and he's out here terrorizing people in Hawaii, and he kidnapped some woman and did all these, it really doesn't make sense. I mean, I know these guys are blood sport style wrestlers and they bleed in every match. So does John Moxley. I mean, I don't understand, I get, how things have changed over the last 20 years and in a lot of ways for the better. But, a guy like Jay Briscoe, who's a family man, who knows God, who is tolerant, who is kind, who really just is just one of the best people I've ever known. It drives me nuts that they can't see past to let him, be who he was.
Rob, I've got a question for you, Rob. Do you think that and I don't want to necessarily harp on this. Obviously, this is like a something that was very difficult for him, that he made a mistake, and I'm a true believer in rebounding from your mistakes, and our mistakes in our past don't necessarily dictate our future and who we are. But do you think that his gimmick and how he looked and how he acted hurt his image, so to speak, with the regular, because let's say you don't know who he is and you're just this outsider that maybe isn't even a big wrestling fan, and you just hear that this guy who looks, scraggly beard, looks like he's in a trailer, and just, all these prison tattoos, and he just looks like this hard, bad, whatever, do you think that hurt the fact of him being able to kind of come back from that, as opposed to a clean cut Dana White, who's a business executive and a PR team and all that kind of stuff?
I think people in film and television are especially executives, are kind of odd ducks when it comes to those things, because I've got a lot of friends who are in film and television. I've got friends that do effects. I've got friends that do CGI. I've got friends that do production, PA assistants. And I mean, it takes all kinds. I mean, it really does. Mm-hmm. But I feel like you're onto something with that. I'd hate to think that his look and the Duck Dynasty look, or whatever the hell you want to call it, kind of took away from his ability to be on television and earn for his family. I don't really know, but I mean, there could be something to that. But that also kind of lends to the kind of guy that Tony Khan is. Tony Khan did everything he could to make sure Jay's name was on that broadcast, with the armbands, with the shot at the beginning of the show, the cold open, they said his name multiple times. And I truly believe that a guy like Tony Khan is probably going to pay out Jay's salary for the rest of Tony Khan's life. And even then, probably after that, because, Gracie and JJ and Gannon, they're children. They're 12, 9, and young, like an infant. And, it's going to be a rough go, for them. I mean, they have family. They have a fabulous support group. Josh Wharton, who is the guy who set up the GoFundMe page for their family, which, by the way, at the moment has raised over $250,000 for the Pugh family, which is such a blessing. It's so heartwarming. It made me feel good. Josh, I think, is their pastor. He's been giving updates on the family, community updates. Gracie, she moved her legs yesterday, surgery was successful. JJ's in a cast. She broke her leg and had some cervical and lumbar spine issues, but it looks like the kids are going to be okay physically. Obviously, these mental scars and emotional scars are going to stay with them forever. And it makes you want to hug your kids. A little tighter tonight, but it's really great to see how the community, both in Delaware and in wrestling and around the world, have really rallied behind the family. It's heartwarming, and it feels good knowing that everyone has really done their part and stood strong. But I want to pivot before I get really misty, cutting onions. If you get a chance, fans of the show, check out the trilogy of matches between the Briscoes and FTR. One of the matches, one of their matches, the first match of their trilogy, was at Supercard of Honor in April, and it was one of my matches of the year. Their second match was at Death Before Dishonor in July, and their last match was in I can't talk. I'm tired. December at Final Battle, where the Briscoes won back the titles. I know you've watched those matches. I've watched those matches. This to me is one of the best trilogies in the history of pro wrestling. I feel like this even overshadows Rock and Austin, honestly. I mean, and that's saying a lot, but I mean, if you just really lay it down and think about where these guys were in the industry, Ring of Honor had to take a hiatus for a little while, and then they come back with these amazing shows and AEW with Tony Khan buying Ring of Honor and giving the fans an alternative and giving them back their nostalgia. It's definitely where WWE missed the mark with WCW and ECW. Justin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think the quality of those matches can be overstated. I think the only difference between and I like to separate singles matches and tag team matches. To me, they're just two completely different things, right? So
Sure.
When you say Rock and Austin, I would think more like I don't know, like the Ultimate Powers or something like that, back in the 80s or 90s, or some huge tag team match. But, or like the Dudleys versus the Hardys or some of that kind of stuff there. And those were trailblazing matches. But the only thing that made those matches better was the platform. If you cherry pick the Briscoes and the FTR and you put that, and you don't change anything, except for maybe the camera angles, whatever, or the package that plays before it that WWE does so well. But if you cherry pick that trilogy and that feud or whatever rivalry, as you would call it, and you put it on Raw and SmackDown and build it up to WrestleMania, and you put that match as, a co-main event for WrestleMania, it's a match that would stand up to absolutely anything that's ever been televised in wrestling whatsoever. In every aspect, in the build, in the promos, in the in-ring psychology, in the smash mouthness of it, if you will, in the technical side of it. Those matches are absolute masterpieces. Bar none, some of the best tag team wrestling that has ever been done in human existence. And the only reason why it's not more celebrated is because of the platform. That's literally the only reason. And I think that's one of the things that upsets me the most. I love it because it still makes it feel like it's special to us, but it's very upsetting to see people with talent. And FTR, granted, they've been up there at the pinnacle, no pun intended, in WWE. But to see, a group like the Briscoes, who they deserve the multi-million-dollar contracts. And if you could have put them in there and could have allowed them to be into a big system like that, there is zero doubt in my mind that they would go down as one of, if not the greatest tag team in all of wrestling history, if you give them that platform.
I agree. I feel like these are guys that are on par with the Dudleys, Team 3D, Steiner Brothers, the New Day, the Usos. I mean, these guys, FTR. I mean, these guys been tagging for 20 years, and really and truly, they've been tagging for 37 years because they're brothers. There's something very special about doing something you love with a family member, especially a brother. A lot of your great tag teams. I mean, I think of the Usos.
Most
and
of the
Steiners,
great tag
brothers.
teams. Yeah, exactly.
And,
the Usos, the Steiners, the Hardys. I mean, all of them. I mean,
Hardys.
And I mean, the Dudleys, they were biological. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, come on.
In the gimmick.
Oh, my brother.
Yeah, half brothers.
Brothers from another mother is what they would call themselves in ECW.
If we're talking about current events, Devon Dudley, let's just bring this in there. So this is about Jay, but this is happening right now. Devon Dudley has been released from WWE. He has left WWE, and there are talks about potentially, because his brother Bubba is going on a tear right now, which you've talked about in the last couple podcasts and Impact. And to see Devon come back, and even though he's not in ring shape and he doesn't need to be taking any bumps, but at the very least, like, let him go get the table, right? I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
To see that happening. But
I think it would be too. Honest to God,
tier.
Honestly, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead.
Honest to God, I'd love to see them in AEW and let them go win those titles, and then they've got them all. They just go wreck the Acclaimed. I mean, everybody loves the Acclaimed, but I mean, it'd be badass to see those guys go in there and win those titles, because it's the only ones they don't have. Why not? I'm here for it.
They'd be great heels for the Acclaim. They'd be great heels for the Acclaimed. And think about the freaking Max Caster freaking
the raps
freestyles that he could do about the Dudleys. Like, if he's been laying into Double J for so easily. I just can't imagine the stuff that he would be able to say about the Dudleys. It would be a great run.
That guy is a superstar waiting to happen. No question.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Bud, do you want to go ahead and wrap this?
Anytime. Yeah, I was just going to say, even John Cena has literally admitted, like, because people are like, oh, you stole John Cena's gimmick. And John Cena's literally gone on record as saying, like, no, he does my gimmick, but he actually does it well. Like, I couldn't do that live with the music and actually have the flow. Like, I could never do that. Like, he's admitted, like, he does what I did better. So, man, I just want to, like you said, man, it's just, I'm so glad that we got on here and did this. We were both kind of been down and out. But it feels good to sit here and talk about it, and hopefully we shed a positive light on what is such a horrible tragedy, but such a beautiful, awesome life and entertainer and pro wrestler in Jamin Pugh and Jay Briscoe. I think his legacy will live on past this. I hope that Tony Khan and everybody does everything that they can to make it endure. And I hope that this is just another wake up call in this horrible string that we've had of young men, for whatever reason, be it sickness, be it suicide, cardiac arrest, car wreck. I mean, it's just, we need to be more mindful, of these things. And I really, really hope there's at least some type of backlash and we can somehow go back and Warner Brothers can be like, you know what, that was a bad call. We should be able to respect this man on a larger platform.
I hope so. Well, in closing, I'd like to thank Gary Juster, who's a client of mine now. I would like to thank him for introducing me to Ring of Honor, for getting me a spot on the crew. To Kerry Silkin, the former owner of Ring of Honor, thank you always for being kind. To Jay and Mark Briscoe, you guys are the best. We love you. To Ashley Pugh, to Gracie, to JJ, heal quickly, sweet girls. We are rooting for you. We are praying for you. Y'all are very loved. God is going to keep you safe and provide for you. To Papa Briscoe and Jana, to Josh Wharton, who's been great about giving the updates from Delaware, live on the ground in Delaware, to Tony Khan for just being an amazing individual and remembering Jay's legacy, to all the wrestlers who have worn Jay Briscoe armbands, to the fans, the community, to everybody who ever watched a Jay Briscoe match or watched a Briscoe Brothers match or stood by and handed them a towel. They were covered in blood. I'm grateful, and I will miss Jay tremendously, and I'll see you again one day soon, my friend, and I promise to bring you a pack of gum.
That's right. And until then, we will reach for the sky, boy.
Reach for the sky, boy. Happy wrestling, everybody. Take care.
Happy wrestling. See you guys.